Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And as always, a special thank you to every single one of you who has become a subscriber on Substack, Patreon, YouTube, or who has otherwise supported my work. I appreciate every single one of you. Authoritarian governments, digital surveillance state, and the end of freedom of speech. Does that sound familiar? Well, things are about to get even more interesting with the launch of a mandatory digital ID. It was once a conspiracy theory, not anymore. The United Kingdom is now heading toward one of the most significant identity policy shifts in modern times, a mandatory digital ID for all workers, set to roll out before the next general election in 2029. Prime Minister Keir Starmer says that it is a necessary step to tackle illegal immigration and to improve border security.
Today, I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them.
But critics, from civil liberties groups to political rivals, say that it could pave the way for a dystopian surveillance state. Using a popular issue, such as illegal immigration, for example, as a tool to roll out surveillance state is a great way, is a very convenient way to get the buy-in from many people who don't bother to do their homework. And if you think that this is just a UK problem, rest assured, this is bound to be only the beginning, a test run before it is implemented in the United States and in other Western countries. So what exactly is the UK government proposing? Why now? And why are so many people, including millions of British citizens, deeply worried? Let's break it down. So first things first, what is the UK's digital ID plan? What is the official version? At its core, Starmer's government wants every adult in the UK who wishes to work to have a digital ID. It will be app-based, stored on a smartphone, and include your name, your photo, date of your birth, nationality, and residency status. In other words, it will store your key private data that you would otherwise prefer to keep to yourself. Here's the important part. Employers would be legally required to check your digital ID against a central government database. So there's going to be a central government database before hiring anyone. And officially, the official version says that this new digital ID replaces older, less secure systems that are based on paper documents or national insurance numbers. The government claims that this will crack down on illegal work, it will stop people from using fake or borrowed national insurance numbers, and it will reduce one of the major pull factors for undocumented migration, which is, of course, a key route to gain access to the UK job market. Now, in reality, if someone voices opposition to the UK government's politics and then becomes arrested or apprehended, let's say at an airport, because of their political views, they may be prevented from ever getting a job thanks to their digital ID that will store all of their information. Thus, their entire life will be on the line unless they choose to remain silent and obedient. Add to it a digital currency, a CBDC, and its programmability. A digital ID is just a platform that is needed to roll out mass surveillance and control. Things like freedom of travel, banking and financial services, healthcare, freedom of movement may soon become limited or unavailable. So the rollout of a digital ID is the first step toward creating a framework to surveil and to control a country's population. The launch of a digital ID is a massive political gamble for Starmer. He introduced the policy at the Global Progress Action Summit, appearing alongside world leaders from Canada, Australia, and Iceland. Starmer said that Labour has been unable to confront immigration head-on in the past, and so he suggested using digital ID as a solution. With reform gaining popularity now and polling as Labour's likely challenger in 2029, Starmer's move is being actually presented as a political counterstrike, a bold, tough on immigration policy. But in reality, it is quite clear that a digital ID is a tool to silence dissent and to identify those who oppose key policies. Not surprisingly, for many in the UK, the idea of national ID cards is deeply unpopular. It was rejected by Parliament in the early 2000s under Tony Blair's government, and former Conservative cabinet minister David Davis remains one of its best critics today. Groups like Big Brother Watch, the Open Rights Group, and other civil liberties advocates say that the new digital ID system could become a gateway to mass surveillance. Right now, presenting a plastic driver's license is a private exchange, effectively, between you and the person who's checking it. But with a digital ID, each verification could phone home to the government. In other words, it could notify a central database every time that your digital ID is used, telling officials where, when, and why your ID was checked. So potentially this could reveal your location, your intentions, your plans, and they will be immediately available to the government that issued your digital ID. The process will be instant. Needless to say, that's not just a privacy concern, it is the potential foundation of a national tracking system. Starmer insists that the digital ID is not an all-encompassing card. He says it's just to prove your right to work in the UK, and it's not required for healthcare, welfare, or police checks. But critics argue, for how long? Once the infrastructure is in place, once it is implemented, what's stopping future governments from expanding the use? For taxes, for example, for banking, for financial services, public transport, for social media access, or even facial recognition-enabled surveillance at protests, for example, or let's say sports matches. In 2024, the UK passed the Online Safety Act, which critics already say undermines digital privacy. Add a mandatory digital ID system to that, and you start to see the pieces of a far more authoritarian framework actually coming together. The government insists that the system will be secure, inclusive, and privacy conscious. Of course it will be. Officials promise support for people without smartphones or reliable internet too, including face-to-face ID options for older people or the homeless. But cybersecurity experts warn any centralized digital ID database is a prime target for hackers, for foreign states, and for corporate misuse. One breach and millions of people's personal data could be exposed online. If a system tracks when and where your ID is used, it could theoretically be connected to your browsing history, to your bank account, to your travel patterns or political activities, to your political views. This isn't just a British issue. In the United States, at least 13 states already have a digital driver's license, and over 20 more are exploring them at this moment. And the UK's decision, especially in tech and civil liberties, often echo globally. More than 2.4 million people have signed a petition demanding the government scrap the plan entirely. Millions are saying, "I will not comply." For now, the government insists that the digital ID will only be used to verify work eligibility and won't be required for daily life. But trust is very, very fragile, as it should be, especially when it comes to data, to privacy, and government power. We've seen what happens when governments rush into big tech solutions without proper oversight, data leaks, mission creep, and of course public backlash. So the real question isn't just should the UK have a digital ID, it's who controls these IDs, how are they used, and what they become next. Because once a system like this is built, it is very hard to dismantle, especially when the system is the backbone of an authoritarian surveillance state. I will keep you updated once more information is released, and I will be sure to upload a new video. Ring the notification bell to stay informed if you're interested. Thank you very much for joining me for this video. I hope that it was interesting, and I hope that you consider supporting my work. Become a subscriber here on YouTube, on Substack, and Patreon. I would love to have you back for my next video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.